situation where you find that a person look at the same.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
Today on the show, we will be looking at the psychological effects of incessant abduction of children, and we'll also bring some entertainment on the show. But before then, let's move on straight to the newspaper review, and we will start by taking headlines from the front page of Daily Trust Saturday. And the lead story there has to do with concerns over rising trends of child abductions and killings. And like we said earlier, we'll have a guest on the show who will talk about the psychological effects. And we have writers on that show, on that particular story, that says 124 kidnapped in 5 years. 1,442 abducted from schools in 2021, says UN. Child rights law can make a difference, says lawyer. And then create Child Rights Commission, says activist. That's a research that was done of cases of abduction from 2017 to 2021. We also have stories on the at the top of the page that says controversy trails arrest, remand of Kano government critic Maazu Magaji. Details of that story can be found on page 6. We also have ECOWAS suspends Burkina Faso after military coup. If you come to the bottom, you'd see a story that says farmer count losses. That's the cover story that says farmer count losses as heavy wind ravages crops in Sokoto communities. And an interview here, an exclusive interview that says with the Emir of Gaya, that says switching from private to public life most difficult. We also have a story just beside it that says 30 rotten bodies of kidnapped victims found in abandoned rivers hospitals. And details of that story can be found on page 7. These are the stories that we have on front page of Daily Trust Saturday.
The next paper we're going to be looking at this morning is The Guardian newspaper, and it carries the major story. The major headline on the front page of The Guardian reads, Security lapses at Lagos Airport. And rider there, facility, passengers exposed to danger. And of course, rivalry amongst agencies, widened loopholes, and another one that says it's time to rejig security architecture. These are attributed to stakeholders in the aviation industry on security lapses at Lagos Airport. That is on the front page of The Guardian newspaper. Another story on the front page of The Guardian, where you can find the story on page 3 actually, is Oromoni, alleged torture by school seniors, witness tells coroner. Then another one, talking about politics now, and it's on page 4, it says, Ekiti poll, Badaru insists APC primary was free, fair. That is also on the front page of The Guardian. Shops raised as petrol tanker explodes in Onitsha. That is on page 5 of The Guardian newspaper. And then we look at the entertainment section. It's at Guardian Music. It's judges set the tone as search for next Nigerian idol begins. That is also on the pages of The Guardian newspaper. So those headlines can be found on the particular Guardian newspaper for this morning.
All right, now moving on to The Nation newspaper. We have right at the top there that says a story that says electoral bill, NAS cleans up harmonized version as INEC deadline looms. And we have a rider that says Catholic Church delay of legislation unacceptable. That's what the Catholic Church is actually saying. And then Yari Marafa meets Atiku Saraki amid defections rumors. And then we also have a story there that says Supreme Court delaying resolution of VAT dispute, Wike alleges, and accuses NJC of being used to intimidate judges. Details of that story on page 4. We have the lead story there, 2023 zoning intrigues deepen in APC PDP, and a writer that says Buhari will guide ruling party on way forward, says Abiodun. And then the story that actually one of the trending stories for the week here. It's an untold story of a Lagos hotelier allegedly killed by a wife. And writers here say deceased hotelier's wife allegedly stabbed him twice in Nigeria and Dubai before last attack. And then late husband bought her a 12 million naira car, 500,000 naira phone as birthday gifts last December. We also have police detain victim's widow, 3 others as SCID, and details of that story can be found on page 11. We also have on billionaire business woman Titi Ejimagwa, varsity official denied me admission for rejecting his advances. And a few other stories at the footnote. Hanifa, police arraign wife of alleged killer. And then we also have Ekiti 2022. No aspirant boycotted APC Gubo primaries, says Badaru. And then ex-Kano commissioner arraigned for inciting disaffection against Ganduje. These are the stories on The Nation Saturday.
The next newspaper we'll look at this morning is a Saturday Punch, and on the top of the page there's a story there starting with politics. It says Northern youth ask Dangote or Tedola to others to join presidential race. That is a story on the front page of the Punch, and you can find that story on page 5. And still talking politics, another one here says will challenge Fayemi man's emergence as APC candidate. That is attributed to Adeyeye and Ojo, and that story is on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. Still talking politics, another one here says Tinubu not sick in London for consultations, says aide. That can be found on page 8. The major story on the front page of the Punch this morning is PDP shuns power shift, says Atiku, Kwankwaso, others free to run. And writers here on that story, ex-VP not too old to contest, that is the aide replying Makinde, and no Igbo man should take VP slot in PDP APC, says Ohaneze. And another one here that goes, Buhari will guide APC on zoning, says Governor Abiodun. Those stories are actually couldn't be found on pages 4 and 7 of the Punch newspaper. When we go down the front page, we'll see another story here that says, we're still in shock, losing dad, daughter, fiancé to Bochi crash. That is a late civil servant's brother-in-law. That story can be found on page 22. On the bottom of the page, you'll find Lagosians will miss my government if denied second term. That is by the Lagos State Governor, Sanwo-Olu. That story is on page 8. Military blames poor network roads for Zamfara Niger killings. That is on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. And of course, another headline on the bottom of the page reads, Nigerian judiciary becoming confusing, painfully contradictory. That statement is attributed to Wiki. All these stories can be found on the pages of the Saturday Punch for this morning.
All right, we'll take the final newspaper, which is a Business Day Weekender, and the major headline there is about the art market, and it says the art market from an artist's point of view. And then if you come down a bit at the footnote, you'd see a story saying African excellence with Vimbai, and this, I think it's an interview on African excellence. And then we also have the news roundup there that says how Nigeria can ease subsidy removal pain despite high oil price. Nigeria's cost of borrowing spikes to highest in 15 months. And these are the stories that we have on the front page of major newspapers from across the country. Now, one particular story, like I said, that touched on every newspaper. It's the human angle story of the lady who actually killed her hotelier husband. There's been lots of cases of domestic abuse, in many homes these days. Just a few, I think sometime last month, there was a story that went around, if you're in Kaduna, the story that actually went around of a very pretty lady who was actually killed by her husband after, a brief argument. And you have people advising, women that if your husband beats you, there's no point staying in the marriage, just leave for your life and for your children and everything. And you still have these women, insisting that, they have to make the marriage work. What do you think?
Well, I think it's an issue of self-esteem. You understand, when you find yourselves in situations like this, it's hard for you to comprehend why these women actually stay, or why people actually stay in abusive relationships. Because when we talk about domestic violence, or domestic abuse, the first thing that comes to mind is the husband abusing the wife. They don't look at the other way around. It actually happens as well.
And that's because we actually see a lot more stories of husbands who abuse.
Exactly. But domestic violence actually goes both ways. So it's very difficult for you to comprehend. You're looking at it from the outside. It's difficult for you to comprehend why people actually stay in abusive relationships when it's easy for you to just say you can pack up and leave, you know? But sometimes we don't know the dynamics behind these relationships, and it's a question of mindset, just like I said earlier. You know, when a person has a particular mindset, a particular self-esteem issues, then anything can happen, and it's really not the ideal situation.
You know, why this subject is kind of touchy for me is because I had a friend, you know, who a few years ago died in the hands of her husband, her and her child, a 4-year-old child, you know, and talking about domestic abuse. You know, you keep thinking, you know, when does it start? How does it start? What leads to, you know, a man losing so much respect for the woman that he has to touch her?
Well, sometimes it's a gradual progression. You understand? Sometimes it's like that. And sometimes people go into the relationship with their eyes wide open. She probably knows he has violent tendencies, but she probably convinced herself that he'll change.
But is it possible for you to know if someone has violent tendencies from, you know, courting or from a relationship?
Of course the signs will be there. The signs will have to be there. You definitely know
what
the
are the
person
signs?
has violent tendencies.
What are the signs?
I've never been in an abusive relationship.
Okay.
You understand?
Well,
so
you
I really wouldn't know. But definitely the signs will be there. You stay with this person. You engage with this person on a regular, and definitely you will see the signs unless we put our blinders on, because they say love is blind. That's what happens. So maybe you are so into the relationship that we put blinders on and we decided to ignore those red flags, and that is when they metamorphose and then snowball into something else.
You know, there's some women who are so damaged that they feel like if the man doesn't hit them, then, you know, he doesn't love them.
Well, that is a whole different level of that's a whole different level of mental issues. You understand, and that goes deeper than a lot of things that we've actually experienced. But it does happen, and well, it's up to the mental health experts. Those are the ones who can be able to
now,
actually
like you
tell
said,
that.
yes, like you actually said, it's not just women who are abused. You know,
Exactly.
men are.
Actually are
So why
abused as
don't
well.
the men come out?
Well, it's an issue of machismo. I mean, like, I will lose face if I come out with my game and I say that my wife beats me. you understand? I will lose face in the eyes of the boys. You understand? So that is why we don't have a lot of cases of men coming forward saying they're being abused in a relationship. And when we're talking about abuse in a relationship, it doesn't even have to be physical. You understand?
Yeah, it can
Emotional
be
abuse
emotional,
is actually there as well. And a lot of men go through that. But they feel as if, okay, if I come out and say that I am being abused either emotionally or verbally by my wife, then I'm not a man. You understand? So that's the problem.
But shouldn't your life matter more than your ego?
It should. That is under normal circumstances.
Because if you talk about emotional abuse, some people would actually say it's better. But what emotional abuse does is it leads to depression, and it leads to suicidal tendencies as well. So
exactly. Emotional abuse is just as bad as the physical. You understand? It's just as bad as the physical. As the physical can kill you, so can emotional abuse actually kill you as well. So it's a wide topic. It goes deeper than what we can be able to say on the surface. And it's on an individual case-by-case basis, because everybody has his own mentality, and there are different circumstances leading to these relationships, and of course there are different circumstances in the relationship. So without actually someone being in that particular situation, it's difficult for you to understand the dynamics of that relationship.
So in your opinion, what do you think one can actually do, both a man and a woman, once they find themselves in that kind of situation?
2 words: get out. Simple. Just get out. Because it's when it gets to that particular stage, it gets to a particular stage whereby there's nothing to fix.
It starts small and then...
Exactly, and then it snowballs into something else. When it gets to a particular stage, you can't fix it. It is not fixable. Just get out before it gets into before it becomes something else.
Okay, I think with that we will wrap up the dailies today. You know, talking about major trending issues and also trending stories on front page of most newspapers. When we come back, it will be time for our first discussion, and we already have our guest, you know, on standby. Do stay tuned.
A situation where you find that they must look at the
not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that